Hey guys, what's up? It's Natasha and welcome back to this week's video. This week I am doing my September wrap-up. I read, I think, about 5 books. I participated in Becca and the Bookathon. Wow, that was a struggle. I did make a few changes here and there, so if you saw my September TBR, it's not the same. Most of it is, but not a lot. So before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, comment down below if you've read any books, if you participated in the Bookathon, and how many books did you read. And without any further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So the first book I read was City of Heavenly Fire, and I think I read this for the book over 500 pages, so it's basically the big book prompt. Okay, so I'm not going to explain what the Mortal Instruments is about because it's a whole 6 series and I'm sure everyone knows what it is about. Although, let's just say we have our main character Clary, and her eyes open to a very different world than what she's used to. There's monsters, there's demons, there's whatnot and everything.
Okay.
And she meets kind of like a demon slayer and his 2 friends, and that is how she gets wrapped up in this very weird family dynamic, if I can put it like that, but also a very dark and sinister evil guy. I don't know how to explain this. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, but yeah, that is what that is about. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I will call this one epic, even the best in the series. Now watch me eat my words, but this book had a sure flow to it. The plot was moving from one setting to the next. There wasn't any points where I was like, why are you here? What are you doing? What is the purpose of this point in the story? And why? Why are you just... you know, I didn't question any of the characters because I felt like every character had a reason to be in this book and every character was moving the plot forward. I was, however, not rooting for the main characters, mainly because I know Jace and Clary is anyway going to end up together. So, you know, brother or not, it wasn't just my style. When they started, you know, getting lovey-dovey or anything, I was just like, okay, cool. No, like, this doesn't interest me. Where I would, for other books, I would root for the main characters, this wasn't one of those. But who I did root for was Alec and Magnus, and then also, what's her name? Isabel and Simon. I definitely adore those 2 as a couple. They are just the cutest. Simon's insecurity towards Isabel and her insecurity towards Simon is just, it's pure. That is basically what I'm going to say. Now the only thing, or the only bad thing I would say about this book is I want to know what the author's obsession is with the fact that her brothers have to be like intimate with her brothers. I'm saying in quotation marks because Jace obviously is not her brother, but have to be very intimate with Clary. And I was like, there were a few points in this book where I was sitting going, why are you like this? And why has this been written in the story? Like, I get Sebastian was this kind of person that wanted affection from his sister and not from his mother, but especially from his sister. He wanted her validation, and he did it in the weirdest way, which was very cringeworthy. So if you dive into this book, just watch out for that. I don't know, it was really weird at some point in time, especially at the end. It was very weird. I also loved how Cassandra Clare started incorporating new characters in the story to pave way for more characters and for future developments in the series. I see where she's going with it. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Like I said, gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book is basically the only 5 stars I gave with, you know, pure, I love this book from beginning to end and I would sell my soul to read this book again. That is basically for the first time. So what I read was Taylor Jenkins Reid's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and can I just say this book was amazing. It was beautifully written. The characters were just so amazing. I didn't as much care for Monique in a sense, but the story behind Evelyn Hugo and the story behind why she is the way she is and what she does or did in the past to become this famous woman was just, it was all around amazing. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid manages to make a character so lovable that she actually feels real. We are introduced to our main character Monique, and she is working as a journalist interviewing people, but she's very low-class journalist. Like she's doing the nitty-gritty stuff, and all of a sudden her boss calls her in and she's like, listen here, the most famous actress in our time, or before your time, Evelyn Hugo, wants you to do an interview for for our newspaper or magazine or whatever. And Monique's like, why me? And she says, I don't know, she specifically asked for you. Monique goes there and Evelyn gives her this ultimatum. She says, I will tell you about everything in my past that happened, but you have to publish it as a biography. You cannot publish it through your newspaper or through your magazine. And first Monique's like, why? But you called me through my boss. And she's like, no, if you do it through that, I will not allow it, then you can just leave. And Monique decides that she is going to publish the biography. And what transpires is a very sad and dark, but also interesting story of how Evelyn Hugo became Evelyn Hugo and why she is the way she is. I really think that if Evelyn Hugo was a real person, I would admire her. Like, definitely I would admire her, despite the past that she had, despite everything that she's done. She's a very strong-willed woman. She's a very amazing woman. She stands by her beliefs, and that is all I can say about this book. Otherwise I would go on a rant about this book forever, but just now gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. Now, the next book I read was Does It Hurt by H.D. Colton, and I gave it 5 stars merely because it was 5 stars of spice. This book is unhinged. Just check for trigger warnings as well. If you open the first page, you will see there's like a list of trigger warnings the author gives you, and it's wild. This follows a girl who has been running away from the cops for about 7 years, and she survives through identity theft. There's a reason why she's running away from the cops, but I don't want to spoil anything because it's not something that is mentioned early in the book. You kind of learn it along the way later on. While she's running away from the cops, she's sitting at the airport on her way to a flight to Indonesia, and a family member, I'm not even going to try and explain to you what family member it is, but they see her, they notice her, and they call the cops. In a frantic way to get out of there, she goes to the desk center and she's like, I need your quickest flight, or your whatever flight's was going to happen now. I need a ticket for that. Turns out she ends up in Australia, where she meets this guy called Enzo, and he works with sharks, so he really loves the ocean and all that. This comes into play, trust me. It does. So she meets this guy and, you know, they have a fun time together. He knocks her socks off, or is it her bikini? She steals his identity. When he notices this, it makes him so mad. He's fuming. He's determined to get her back, and the only way he knows he can do that is by taking her on a boat in the middle of the ocean and threatening her with sharks. What transpires after that is he didn't notice that there was a storm brewing, and they capsize, the boat sinks, they are stranded on an island with a very mysterious man with a mysterious past and very strange noises and bumpy noises in the night. My initial thoughts of this is a very dark romance with a mysterious island and an even more mysterious person on the island. All I can say about this book is all I can say about this book is the description doesn't do it justice. You just go into this blindly because you will not be disappointed. And then I read The Bane of My Existence.
You are the bane of my existence.
Although I enjoyed it, I read Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Myro. This book follows 4 talents, and what they basically do is they have these special abilities, and there is no way in telling how they got these abilities, but one glows, one heals so he can never die, one is invisible, and the other one can work with the dust. It's much more complicated than I'm trying to make it, but there's also a very dark magic brewing while these kids are trying to go to an institute that is actually located in Scotland, and that is aimed at helping these kids thrive in their magic and, you know, get their magic under control so that they can actually improve and know how to work with this. And there's a guy that's hunting them down. He's specifically looking for one person, but you know, whichever talents come in his way, sure, he'll just use them to his advantage. And they are trying to stop this weird guy from getting to this specific child. Mind you, he's only 11, I think. So it makes everything more wilder. And we are met with a cast of characters who are strange and they're funny. I especially like Ribs. That's not her real name, but she likes being called Ribs. It's funny. It's fantastical. it is an historical fiction slash fantasy. There are new terms involved, and it's just a hoot of a time.
Sarcasm? No.
That took me 2-3 weeks to read. So, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars because, you know, it's a fantasy. It was new, and even though it took me so long to read, I really enjoyed every character that was introduced to us. The good guys, the good characters, as well as, I would say, the bad character, because there was kind of like a, I don't know if he was fake, but I kind of feel sorry for him in a sense. And that's when you know you wrote a good villain, is when you start to feel sorry for the villain. You know? You get what I'm saying? Okay.
Okay.
Because J.M. Myro just wrote these villains, well, the one, so beautifully that you actually start to feel sorry for what he went through and why he is the way he is. So, you know, take it as you will. Then I read my first ever Hallie. Who's that? My first ever Ali Hazelwood book, and it is Love on the Brain, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So we basically follow this neuroscientist called Bee, and she's asked to work at NASA to improve or to create like this helmet thing. I don't know what exactly it does. She has to work with her arch nemesis Levi, who's an engineer, so they have to create this helmet thing. And this is an enemies to lovers book. It is very entertaining to read. It's very funny, but Bee gives me Amy Farrah Fowler vibes from The Big Bang Theory, and Levi, although he comes off as this very big douchebag, I really enjoyed his banter with Bee as well, especially the more they got to know each other, the more they became friends in a sense, and the more they coexisted in their co-creation of this helmet. It was very sweet. I really enjoyed the book. I haven't read The Love Hypothesis, but I hear some people say that the villain is more fleshed out in Love on the Brain. The only criticism I have is the fact that Hazelwood keeps on saying, and she keeps on mentioning, the height difference between the two characters. We get it. If you told us in the first paragraph, he's a monstrosity, he weighs like 300, I don't know, Ks, full of muscle, and he's tall as the Eiffel Tower, I think we could have pictured that. And if you told us you were teensy tiny small like a troll, we would have got it. But in every other page it was mentioned, and I was like, okay, we know he's tall, we know you're short, let's move on. But other than that, there was a clear plot, you know, even though everything was, it felt like it was sometimes stagnating, it wasn't. There was a clear reason behind it. The villain was, I picked him out, so sign me up. I'm going to be a detective now because I saw him from a mile away. Even though I liked him in the beginning, I saw him. Chapters were short. I really enjoyed this book. And then the last book I read for September was Destroy Me. It's part of a novella from the Shatter Me series. It follows Aaron Warner and his weird obsession with Juliet. I give it a 3 stars because, once again, Aaron has weird obsession with Juliet, which kind of freaks me out and makes me think he needs help. But anyway, those are the books that I read in September. If you read any of these books, please comment down below which ones you've read, if you enjoyed them, and I'll see you guys in a video next week. Bye!